Hi there guys, good evening. My name is Nuno. I'm going to be talking about how UX can be incorporated into Agile development. And the title of my talk is, it's good to be first, it's better to be good, but it's best to be both. So let's see how we can do that. But let's see if this works. Yeah, okay. So just a bit about me. So my name is Nuno. I'm working currently at Talkdesk. Been there for 2 months, give or take, but before that I've been kind of traveling around the world. Been in 10 years in the UK, worked while I was in the UK, been deployed into Denmark, Germany, and last year I was working in Singapore, where I've taught UX as well. I've had quite a wide range of customers and industries as well. All right. So like I said, I'm going to be talking about UX in Agile and so on. The what, let me put some boundaries. What I'm going to be talking, it's better when you are launching something big into your own company. It's not necessarily too iterative on this end. So it's a new product, new digital transformation, new proposition, so something that would be transformative into your company. It's not necessarily going to version 1.5 to 1.6, all right? Okay, so when we are doing this kind of transformations and so on, there are two things that we all have to care for. First is companies. Companies want certainty when they are building something. We all, if you've ever seen Shark Tank or something like that, they always ask you, what is your premonition in terms of money, revenue, and so on in 6 months, a year, 10 years, whatever. So no matter in what situation that you are in, companies always want certainty. However, the markets that we operate in are messy, are always evolving, and so on. So what I wanted 2 months ago, it's definitely not what I want today, and what I want today, it's not going to be what I want next year. Okay? So how do we work out these two binomials? Certainty of investment and messy markets. Okay? So back in the day, what did we have? We had Waterfall PMing. And what did we do there? Right? So we used to plan and replan. We used to consider all possible case scenarios, and we used to deliver really good looking documents. These documents, of course, would promise everlasting happiness or, or a glorious vision into the future. However, what most of these projects had in common, we missed the mark. And the main reasons why we used to miss the mark are this is slow to market, the needs of our customers shifted, and we were focused on deliverables, so nice documents, instead of actually delivering something, okay? So after a few decades of wasted money through this process, what did we do? We had Agile to come and save the day. And how exactly does Agile work? So we have a product backlog that was created by a product owner or whoever. We do some planning, either in the wider program, then moves into the sprint. Then we do the sprint work, so developing, testing, and all of that stuff. So I'm not going to go into too much into this because I'm sure that you guys know this better than I do. And then we deliver in increments, right? And effectively, this is awesome. So the success rates of Agile are impressive. Not just on project being delivered, that is what this metric focuses on, okay? But also on more iffy metrics. So customer satisfaction, whatever that is, business value delivered, more velocity, and things like that. So Agile has proved itself quite effectively, all right? And it's no surprise that currently Agile is pretty much ubiquitous. It's so much ubiquitous that even government is doing it, all right? So that it's the American Fed, the monetary fund that they have, even though they are delivering projects in Agile. All right? So, with all of these successes, product development is done. Right? There's not much more to do. Okay? However, did you know that it's not all roses and blue skies and so on? All right? So, from your perspective, in large corporations, where does Agile methodologies are more fundamentally used? Any guesses?
Small teams.
Sorry?
Small teams,
yeah, but in the department. It's in labs. So innovation labs. So that is where a lot Agile is literally being used in terms of let's prototype something, let's build it, let's see how it works, and so on. All right? So the thing about innovation labs throughout the world is that 90% of them are failing because of this methodology of creating something, launching, and then see how it works. Google alone you can't see it very well, but in the last 5 or 6 years that this has been live, have released 162 products that have failed, that they have killed. All right? No analyst says that the Moonshots program, the labs, is ever going to make money. So whatever they release and the money that they get out of the prototypes will never be taken back. And there's a lot of money being lost there, okay? And so what I call this is throw stuff into the wall and see what sticks. Unless if you're Google, Facebook, where you have all the money in the world, that's probably not a very good strategy to go forwards, all right? Let's see a few more case scenarios. So in the UK alone, we have 37 billion pounds being wasted in failed Agile projects. 50% of CIOs think that Agile is just a fad, and 75% of them don't think that they are ready to defend it. And more important, only 29% of Agile implementations are considered successes, while 19% are considered utter failures. Let's see a few real examples. Okay? So this is universal credit, so this is where the UK people get their benefits. And this was considered the biggest ever Agile implementation in the world. They spent 2.4 billion pounds throughout the program to be put in the bin. Skype, just after a year or so after their last redesign, they said, we are going to redesign this stuff because it's not fitting anyone's needs. And I'm not even going to be talking about what what Facebook has been doing for democracies around the world. All right? And if you didn't follow the let's move fast and break things in Facebook, you'd probably be moved away. So where do I think the big problem comes from? The big problem comes from on our backlog. And most of the time, this is the reason. We have a hippo, the highest paid person in the room, that falls in love of him or herself and then says, Company X, we are going to be delivering this. And us, the team, we will have to deliver it. If it's the right thing to do or not, we'll see. We'll build it, we'll test it, and we'll see. Okay, that is the big problem for me. Okay, so very quickly, let's see what this approach actually brings. Okay, so I'm sure that everyone has seen that. This one showcases don't build feature by feature, just go crazy, build something that people can use, iterate and add complexity out of it, right? So if we think that this is time passing, right, and we have our iteration or our releases going forwards, what happens? We start to get more complex out of our products, right? Relatively simple. However, we are never meeting our customers or our users' expectations. There's no chance that we always have a 100% success rate for our features, right? So what on earth is this called? It's called UX and technology debt, which is We are building something that people don't want or want more of it, okay? So we also have cost of change. So if we are not building the right stuff, we need to change it. And the thing is, in Agile, we think it's relatively cheap to change things over time. However, reality shows that. So from day one, as soon as you release something, the cost of change is relatively expensive, okay? So what it's even worse about this is that whatever we are building and this depth that we are creating, it's unintentional. So we all believe that we are doing the right thing, but we are not. So it's not the kind of scenario that you were talking about. Sorry, I forgot your name. Domingos were talking about in terms of, oh, I can't build this now, I'm going to build it next time and so on. No, it's the scenario of, I think I'm doing great, but I'm actually not, okay? So what I say is, don't build it either way, okay? Let's see how we are going to get there. So what is actually the solution? Effectively, there isn't one, okay? What I say is, let's not worry too much about following a methodology acritically. What we should be worrying is about delivering value. That is what we should be worrying about, okay? And let's see how we can focus on delivering value and not just trying to shift things. Has anyone seen this graph before? I'm seeing one there. Okay, this is the double diamond from the UK Design Council. There is tons of variations of this diamond. Virtually every single company has one. Consultancies are specialists in recreating this and making this their own and things like that, okay? So basically what this does is see that there is a diamond where is sometimes you're diverging from the edge, from the center, sometimes you're converging. So this means we are either exploring or we are defining and agreeing on things, okay? So we would go discover, so try to understand what the world is around us. We then define the world around us, okay? Then we design or develop, depends on which version you see, and then we deliver. This is irrelevant if we are working at 6 months time frames or 2 weeks time frames. We should be doing this. Depends on how complex what you're doing is, all right? Let's see how this actually works, right? So during the discover phase, I have tons of input. This can be interviews, research, analytics, whatever. We have loads and loads of inputs coming in. The entire team, so the designers, the developers, the subject matter experts, and business people, we all look at this together and analyze it. When we analyze it, we start hypothesizing of what it is, how can we do it better, and so on and so forth. Then we set success criteria for all of our hypotheses, and we're going to see those things going, all right? We then, when we have success criteria, we'll prioritize whatever we want to deliver, and we will then go through the traditional Agile method, okay? I'm not talking about here, try to do all the design work up front. It's not that. So if we go back to our graph, what I'm trying to say is do small chunks of it, and when you're ready to deliver, then deliver. And then you can work more iteratively because you've agreed with everyone where you want to go. That is the problem, is that a lot of the time we don't agree where we want to go. So this is some methodologies and deliverables that we tend to do in design to do this thing, okay? Qualitative methods, interviews, focus groups, observations, ethnographic research, or shadowing, usability tests, so whatever, okay? Outputs become personas, customer journey maps. So basically is how people use, so first defining, then, first look into, then defining. In terms of quantitative methods, analytics, and we should be focusing on what are called the pirate metrics, and I need to read them because if not I'll forget. Acquisition, activation, activity, recommendations, and revenue. Okay, so we need to understand how many new users we have, how many are staying, how many are recommending, and how many are actually giving us money. Everything else, we don't necessarily care, or it's not that important. All right? We can do questionnaires, not NPS. Does anyone know what NPS is? Net Promoter Score. I can talk about that later, but don't focus on that because it's a silly metric, to be polite. And then we can look at search logs, error reports, and so on. Okay, so this is to understand what it's actually wrong with us or with our product and so on. Okay, so let's move into a hypothesis. How do I make an hypothesis? So I start with the business objective. So I want to achieve X amount of customers, make X amount of more money, so on and so forth. Who is this for? So who's going to help us achieve these metrics? How? What expected behavior we want? And finally, what features will do this for us? And let's break one of those down. So we believe that feature or for user type will achieve goal, and we will confirm this when we'll see X results. So in common English, this is what we have. We believe that a call to action to our chatbot for all visitors after they see at least 2 pages will help us sell more products. We will confirm this when there is a 12% increase of sales for both new and returning visitors. So we have a goal that we want to achieve, the users to which will help us achieve them, and how we are measuring this. So effectively, this is very roughly the user story metric, which is, let me see if I remember this, if I'm not going to make myself silly. Oh, and I forgot. I'm really sorry, guys. Can someone help me? The Agile user story? As a user, I want this because of, thank you. So basically, this is what that is, all right? But we are adding the metric that we think it will become a success, all right? So when we have these things, we're gonna start prioritizing. So which features will give us more money, more new users, whatever. And how do we do this? We can easily do a 2x2, which is also a tool used by any consultancy out there. And basically, we put it, what is low value for us, or for our users, or whatever, what is high value, and what is hard to build, and what it's easy to build. Okay? Then, if this is not clear, you want to be there. All right, on the top right-hand corner. So if you're always doing that, you will always bring more value to your company. And it's relatively easy to pivot as well. Okay? So how can we achieve this? We need to organize our teams. And we need to have teams throughout that are doing the stuff. And these teams should be comprised of business people, designers, developers, and at least a Scrum Master. So everyone in the organization should be involved. All right? Then we would divide the team into coherent segments. So for example, customer retention versus customer acquisition or something like that. Or I've done something that was my account, so people managing their stuff versus sales, whatever it is. And we would then organize and tell everything. Then everyone in the organization from the different departments would organize themselves. So this is basically for us not to focus too much on the trees and have someone focusing on the tree, which is the problem with us in companies. So we are building or designing our own small bit of the software, but our users are seeing everything. So they are not just going through the checkout journey, they will have to go through the checkout journey, the My Account, receiving the stuff at home. So this is what it's so important to have the team organized. And how does, effectively, these ones should be working? So I believe that we should be working at almost 4 sprints in simultaneous, okay? And this, it's a bit weird saying it like this, okay? But we have the sprint that we are currently working on, and then we see the future. And simultaneously, on the sprint that we are working on, we should be seeing what has came past, okay? So I'm not saying that we should be dividing hours and hours of our time, but some of our time we should be looking back, and some of our time we should be looking forward to see what it is, and most of our time we'll be doing our work, okay? So, to deliver value products, this is more or less what Domingos said as well. We need to have a designer in every team. The designers need to have a wide exposure throughout. Research work is a first-class citizen of the backlog. So doing usability testing, seeing the analytics, and so on, that is first-class citizen as well, not something that we'll do at some point. Outcomes value for the organization instead of just feature and feature and feature, and cross-functional participation in learning activities. And if you do this, I guarantee you that you'll get this, which first is you'll be de-risking your idea. How much cheaper it is if you're testing a paper prototype or an InVision file instead of testing a bootstrap, for example. It takes me way less time to do a paper prototype or a click-through that will take any good developer to do a half-decent prototype. Okay? So, it's faster ideation to market. Even though that you might slow the initial, going to the ideal phase, which is launching, that it's actually faster. I've seen this happening again and again. More productivity and team cohesion, because we are all involved, so there's not going to be the designer complaining about we are not doing this or that. Better satisfaction rates throughout, okay? This is for your customers. Lower costs of training and customer support. There is a metric that I didn't bring, but I do in another talk, that doing the UX method can save you around 90% of money into your customer support. So give me 10% of the money that you guys save and I'll shift your company around. So lower cost on training and customer support, quicker adoption and a higher retention. Why is that? Because we know what people want, even if it is at a high level. It's not because some person said it. Let me give you an example. I've created a tool for marine insurance, and after 6 or 7 months we were working on it, the big hippo on the company asked us, so what about the big TV screen? The big TV screen? He was asking about the designs for a massive screen like this. And what are you talking about? Oh yeah, like you see in the movies where you have people with rows of desks and they are looking at one screen. It's like, we have no idea, we never designed it. But that's fine. If we've made a mistake, we'll design and build for free. But here are the personas that we identified from your customers. This is their user journeys. This is the devices that they tend to use. Tell us where the big screen design fits. And he went for like half an hour without saying a word. It doesn't. Okay, sure. If we had delivered that, how much more money had we put into? Around 15 years or so ago, we used to spend around 30% of our budget into putting web pages into BlackBerries because of CEOs. Only for like the 1% of 1%. So all of this will bring higher revenue, higher return of investment, and ensure a sustainable business. And that's it. Thank you very much. So, questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Thank you for the presentation. That's very good. In your examples, I've seen that you showed how to organize the teams, basically Scrum team, you know. So do you think that it could be working non-Scrum teams, like teams just using Kanban or just extreme programming,
Yeah.
plain simple in terms of process, you know?
So if I understood your question well, you're asking if the team organization would work in different methodologies, right? Either extreme programming, Kanban, and so on. I haven't done extreme programming yet, but I've done Kanban. Well, someone else organized the team in Kanban, and it worked. The main thing is that ensuring that we have some time of leverage before the sprint actually start, or the sprint work, the development actually start, and us doing our work. So for example, even at some points, we should be having usability testing or some sense checking to see if what we are delivering actually makes sense, okay? And something that it's not usual is that sometimes our sprint work might take 1 week, sometimes usually 2, but sometimes because a feature is really complex, we'll make an epic out of it or something of that sort and spread that feature quite a lot, which will give us some time of research. There is people talking about the, is it two-layer? Two-track Agile or two-track Lean, which is the entire team is doing research, the entire team is developing or designing. Or, for example, designers work 1 sprint ahead or something like that. So it's how do you want to organize your work. Usually I like to work 1 sprint ahead and give my designs. And effectively, we are doing some waterfall out of it, it's true. But I tend to see it work, especially if the team is not co-located. So the project that I was telling you guys about, I was in London, some of the development team was in Sheffield, the stakeholders were in Southampton, the developers were in Kuala Lumpur. So it's basically try to organize your team the way that it fits you guys, but allowing some leverage time for the designers to do their research and be defining something that we can achieve. Did it make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, it's trying to, in advance, pick up some developers or designers in order to make first work in the next sprint.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So, and for example, the top people, for example, can be looking forwards. So the teams above can be looking forward. So this was at Thomson Reuters. I was in charge of information architecture, so how things are organized throughout the application, and interaction design. So, for example, I was looking how tables should work. So I would be talking to everyone across the organization to see what billing wanted from their tables, what customer support wanted from their tables, and so on. And then I kind of created a master or a Frankenstein with every permutation that you could have, and I explained to all the other Scrum teams what they could do and what they couldn't. So I was kind of building their design system ahead of everyone else, so that when the exact table were needed, they had already the tools to build it and didn't have to think about how the table had to go through, how would filters work, and so on. So we thought about things, not just where we were, but in the future as well. Anything else? Yeah.
So really nice, and you said something at some point, like after you do the good user research in the beginning, you do all the discovery phase.
Not all, but some, yeah.
Some of it. And at some point, when you get the definition of the problem, and I guess sometimes you have a really tough people, sometimes they're not willing to pivot, right? Because sometimes you realize that what the problems or the solutions that the people actually want, your users, it's not what the people had envisioned, right?
Yeah.
So are you either convince him to pivot the idea, or they drop it, right? And I can imagine you face a lot of these situations. And how do you deal when you get to this point where you have to talk to your stakeholder and tell them, yeah, it's not what you really.
So let me see if I understood, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Is you're saying that after we've done some research definition, what if we are saying that the company or the project needs something else than what was envisioned by the hippo? And what do we do for it, right? Kind of?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that it's interesting, but if you don't do it, how harder will it be, right? Because you don't have any evidence to support your case. And let me give you an example. At Thomson Reuters, I was working in the beginning as a freelancer to just document some designs that an agency that will become nameless forever and ever, the designs that they were giving us. Okay? So because I was seeing the application as a whole, because I was documenting everything, I was noticing some usability issues, some accessibility issues, and so on and so forth. We started by communicating it to the agency. Look guys, the color that you're giving us, it's not accessible. If we put this in the US, we have to pay fines, and in the US, fines tend to become billions or millions and so on. Okay, they ignored us. And at the time, it was designer A, designer B, massive ego, myself, the other guy, massive ego, fighting among each other. Right? You can't necessarily win that battle. And it's the same with your stakeholders. And with the stakeholders from a company, it's even worse because they are paying you. Especially if you're coming from my background, which is consultancy, right? So if you haven't done any of that work, forget it. Because it's going to be literally ego fights, and the person that with better connections or with the highest salary will always win, period, right? What happened on this particular project? So after a few months, and this was around 3 to 6 months or whatever it was, we eventually tested it. And a lot of the things that I and one of my other colleagues that was doing the same work was saying came to fruition via usability testing and diary testing. So what do you think happened? So a company that was charging around £1,000 a day, bare minimum for designers, and you were paying half of that to your own internal team, and your internal team were giving more value to the company, they were kicked off. And in a company as large as the one that I've told you, and I shouldn't have said that, the name, but anywho, it was a multi-million contract. So that guy, a few months later, I saw him in another company. No one wants that, right? So in companies, it's exactly the same thing. So if you don't have the data to back up anything that you say, it's irrelevant. That's why I spent so much time explaining the projects that had failed and things like that, to give some kind of background or a stronger case to what I was saying. Because if I would just go, hey guys, Agile doesn't work, who would believe me? No one, right? So do the work. You might not win, but at least you'll have something to say, I told you so. If you're a generous person, you won't say it. If you're like me, a petulant prick, you'll eventually say to people, I've told you so. Yeah, not necessarily like that, but look, we could have, now we are going to be doing what I've told you. We could have done that 6 months ago and a few £1 million less ago as well, right? So yeah, so that is why those things are so important. What it's important as well, it's focusing on the right things. So that's why NPS doesn't work. So I've said that about NPS. Does anyone know NPS? Net Promoter Score? Yeah, what, yes, so, no? Anyone uses it in their companies? Sorry? I've heard of that. I've never used that particular one, or the companies that I've been there never used it. But very roughly, Net Promoter Score basically says how would you recommend us to your friends or peers and so on. And from 0 to 7 or whatever it is, I always forget if it's 6 or 7. You would definitely not. 7 or 8, you'd be neutral. And 9 or 10 or just 10, I never know which ones are exactly, you would. What is the point about this? Who cares? If you are saying to me that you would recommend something, how often have you said something nice to someone that you've never done? It's as simple as that, right? So we will always put ourselves in a better light than what we are actually in. So if you are asking someone, would you do something nice for me? Of course I would. Will you actually do it? No. Unless if you have something to gain. So that's why it's so important to focus on the right things as well. Did this?
Thanks.
Anything else?
Questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.